Watch the inspirational interview with the leadership of the African Continental Unity Party. They share their vision for a united Africa to create a similar continental configuration to what we find in China, the United Provinces of China, or India, United States of India, America, the United States of America, Russia, the United Federation of Russian States. African unity will manifest a single Pan-African state. Pan-Africanism means prosperity now, now, now. It's another inspirational podcast. And welcome. Announcement. Can you help us out? We need to secure 100,000 new subscribers to the channel. Have you subscribed? Have you shared copies of links to this video with your friends, your network, the wider community? Help us to secure 100,000 new subscribers to our YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing. Now let's get into the interview now. Good morning to you. And I'm going to say welcome again, but there are still many of my guests who don't know who you are and the organization you're from and what role you play in that organization. So I'm going to invite you to introduce yourself. Say your name, organization, and the role that you play in that organization. Go ahead.
All right. So greetings to you, King, first and foremost, and thank you for allowing us on your show.
Pleasure.
And I say greetings to all African people around the world, those on the continent, those abroad, and of course, those in the future. And as usual, we greet you with our revolutionary greetings by saying that peace and love, freedom, and decolonization. My name is Kabbalah. I'm currently speaking to you from DRC. Maybe that's might be the reason why you see my network fluctuating here and there, but normally I'm based in South Africa. I'm a member of the African Continental Unity Party. I am an engineer by profession. I'm also a community development practitioner as well as a student from development studies background. I am a consultant in of course in development studies and scientific research. So I am happy to be on this platform once again. I'm also author of 3 books so far. So actually that's all I can say about myself, and I'm looking forward to a fruitful conversation. Peace and love.
Thank you. This will, I know, will be a very fruitful conversation. You mentioned those 3 books. I was about to ask that question as a subsidiary. It's amazing that you called. I'd like to surprise my guest with a subsidiary question. You see, but anyway, you mentioned your 3 books. Can you just give us the title of your books and their themes?
Yes, so my first book was called The Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation. This was just after I've realized that we have a lot of problems from the outside, but we also have equally some problems from the inside related to how we think, how we process information, how we view the world, and how we view ourselves as African people. Therefore, the real work to rebuild Africa must begin firstly from within. That's the reason why I called the book Expropriation of the Mind and Without Compensation, simply because you don't have to pay anybody for you to think. Thinking is a gift. It's the ability that we wake up with in the morning every day to think. And the second book was What Time Is It? The Question to the African Millennials. It was just a book that was tackling contemporary issues that we are faced as African people, especially the millennials, and facing ourselves, or actually confronting ourselves to our responsibility in this generation in terms of what we are supposed to do. I mean, the book was actually just a response to what Frantz Fanon said, that every generation must discover its responsibility and then fulfill it or betray it. So the third book, which is recently published, is called The Commerce of Trust. So this is actually just to speak on the aspect of trust, because that's where we are lagging as African people. We are actually struggling to build strong institutions simply because we don't have trust within ourselves and trust between ourselves. So basically, that can be the summary of the 3 books that I've written so far.
And I've had the pleasure of reading at least 2 of them thus far, and I look forward to the third. And I've got to say that we are in total concordance. I have total like minds, and I've advocated here that reparations begins with self. Mhm. This
Beautiful.
is the first stage. You've got to liberate your own mind. It is challenging,
Mhm.
very challenging. Give my first question to you, and of course, this question is really focused on the ACUP, the African Continental Unity Party. Now, it's a curious party, of course. Because I wonder why it exists. So I'm trying to understand, and this has been a common theme from those here in London. What is the stimulus behind the party? What event, maybe, or statement by others that was the genesis to form the African Continental Unity Party? Over to you.
No, thank you so much. So,
Mm,
the African Continental Unity Party, it's a movement
mhm,
that has been built on the ideals that were pursued by all the revolutionaries, Pan-Africanists that we know, such as Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey,
mhm.
Thomas Sankara, Sheikh Anta Diop. All of them have pursued the same thing that we are doing today, and we are not kind of reinventing the wheel. We are just continuing the fight that has been started for a long time ago, which has to achieve the result that we can all call the liberation, total liberation and
Mhm,
emancipation of African people.
mhm,
Now, to be more specific, when we look at the work of Marcus Garvey, for example, like for instance, when you try to read the literature of Marcus Garvey, such as the philosophy and opinions by Marcus Garvey, you see that the center argument or the center message of all the arguments that he made in that book has been the power. For example, when he said that the state or the race without authority and power is a race without respect, and then he goes further to say that the only justice or the only defense uh, against suffering people
yes,
is power, right?
yes,
So
yes.
I think power has been at the center of our struggle as African people, because when we look at the world today, we see that we are not suffering because of hatred. You know, there are so many people in the world who hate Jewish people, but doesn't make Jewish people a suffering race.
No,
Actually,
no.
they are more powerful regardless of hatred that they receive.
Mhm,
So we are not suffering because of injustice in the world,
mhm.
because injustice is just a tool that people who have the power to use it can use it for their own advantage. So
That's
the
right.
reason why we are suffering in Africa is simply because we are powerless and disorganized. We
Mhm.
are powerless and disorganized. That has been the message of Marcus Garvey. The same message was relayed by Sekou Touré,
Yes,
Kwame Ture,
yes,
Kwame Nkrumah, for example, when he said we must seek first the political power. So the
yes,
power, the topic of power has been the topic that all Pan-Africanists have been actually using as a message
mhm,
to
mhm.
speak to the fellow Africans, to mobilize Africans, to organize Africans. They were doing all those things on one basis of creating the power for African people to do for themselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. And it is exactly what we are doing today as ACUP. Our
Yes,
aim, our vision is to rebuild Africa as a global power base. And we are using intentionally the term rebuilding because the Africa that we have today is and still remains a colonial project. And
indeed.
we cannot develop or grow a project that has been a colonial project designed to be at our disadvantage. So our aim is to dismantle these colonial structures that we have in Africa, such as all these things. So Western democracy, Western thoughts, education, all these things, economic systems, then to rebuild Africa that responds to our culture, our tradition, our ways of life, and then build it as a global power base, simply because
With you.
we have all that it takes to make Africa a global power base. We have the resources, we have the
Yes,
manpower, we have the skills, we have
yes,
the minds, we have everything. And most
yes.
importantly, we have the divine next to us. And even if I go further, I see that the world, the human life, civilization started in Africa and should end in Africa to close the cycle. So we have all the elements pointing to us to be in a position of power. But why aren't we, in that position right now? Simply because we are disorganized, we don't have authority, and we are, most importantly, negligent, towards the world in which we are living today and the reality that are happening in the world. Therefore, ACP is here to organize ourselves politically, economically, to go beyond the borders, the frontiers of colonialism, to begin looking at ourselves not as a Zimbabwean, Congolese, Zambian, South Africans, because all these are the concepts that we create fits within the colonial projects that Africa is functioning in today. Go beyond to reconnect ourselves again, to build Africa that our ancestors knew, our Africas that colonialists destroyed. And this is what ACP is doing right now. So firstly, is mobilization and organization with the aim to achieve a Africa rebuilt as a global power base. And we're doing this through different phases: political education, economic education, as well as political struggle. Because this is a very important thing. That's what I'm trying to mention here.
Yes.
For a long time, even from the time of Marcus Garvey up to now, Pan-Africanism has always been considered as an agenda of the streets. It means people gather on streets to talk about Pan-Africanism, or at least for now, it limits itself on social media. People gather on social media to talk about Pan-Africanism, but in power, in a space where decisions are made, we don't see Pan-Africanism really there. Maybe we are beginning to see now with the Ibrahim Traore and other leaders, but it's not significant when we look at the 53 countries in Africa, 53 states or 54 states, and only seeing 2 or 3 individuals is not enough. So we need to see Pan-Africanism in space where power is defined, in a space where decisions are made about how the society needs to function, who must be paid, what amount of money for what job, what needs to be done with the resources of the countries. I mean, this is actually the work of Pan-Africanism, because we cannot just remain on social media or on streets, or sometimes on protesting, burning tires. It doesn't change the situation, of the continent. So what we are trying to push is to make sure that we train leaders and promote them into political areas, to political environments, by eventually making sure that we capture the political power and then drive the locomotive in a different directions, which will benefit the entire continent, rather than in the current trajectory where we are heading toward destruction and of course, destitution of our values, of the remnants of our values, our ideals, our cultures, African people, which signifies a total destruction of an entire race.
I hear you, and well said. Well said. It's that's a very full response. I had considered a subsidiary, but your response was complete. It was complete. So I don't need to for a follow-up question. So thank you. And what we all detected from you is your sincerity, your compassion, and your passion. Thank you. Now, we have from your colleague here, I know she's in another country, you're in DRC, and now I believe you're in Ghana, Amma. Can you hear us first of all? I'm going to turn your mic back on. Okay. Can you hear us first of all?
I'm in Ghana.
Yes, Ghana. Excellent. First of all, can I just, before I begin the interview with yourself, just invite you just to give your name, the organization you represent, and the role you play in that organization. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Nanama, and I'm a member of the ACUP Ghana, and then also I'm a member of the Women Cause of ACUP. What I play is to mobilize the women, empower them, conscientize them on leadership, and then there's role of a woman being part of ACUP, mobilizing, conscientizing people, and also empowering the women through leadership positions. So basically, that was my role.
That's an incredibly important role, if I may say so. Women are, more than half the world population. So if women are not involved in the Pan-African thought processes and implementing Pan-Africanism will not survive. It will not be successful. So you play a critical role in the process. I want to give my sincere appreciation to you, first of all. My sincere appreciation to you. It's good speaking to you last night. As I said last night, I won't say what I say again, but I'll say it. I'm going to follow up with what you just described. My second question, I'm quite familiar with Ghana. I've had reason to research the people of Ghana, the complex, rich culture in Ghana. Okay. Now, how do you persuade the traditional leaders, let's take Ghana, for example, to accept Pan-African philosophy for their people?
All right. Thank you. You know that in Africa, before the arrival of the Europeans, our chiefs and kings were rulers, and they were the ones that were making decisions and then on behalf and for the people. So to start with, we already were practicing our democracy before the European came to being. And that the influx of the European has really rendered our traditional rulers, the kings and the chiefs, powerless. So basically what ACUP or what our organization try to do is to bring the chiefs who are the custodian of our traditions, our culture, and then also our heritage to come to be part of us, because you cannot start any development without the kings. Actually, it is the chief, the king, who will give you the land to stay on. So there is nothing you can do without involving them. And that is why ACUP, we try to convince them that, in fact, they are the custodians of democracy.
Indeed.
They are the ones that were practicing democracy before the Europeans came to be.
Indeed.
Came to Ghana or Africa.
Emma, please, you need to say that loud. Because honestly, most Europeans I know believe that they were the originators of democracies. So I want you to say it again slowly, because I have quite a number of Europeans who watch my podcast, you see, and learn from us, okay? So I want you to say what you just said again very slowly so they hear every word, every syllable. Say it again about democracy.
Thank you. What I'm saying is that our chiefs and our kings were practicing democracy before the arrival of the Europeans. In fact, when we are talking about democracy, it was being practiced by the indigenous African people. When you look at our culture, our chief system, our the judiciary system, our executive system, policing system, you realize that everything was emanating from our way of doing things before the European came. For instance, in Ghana, when you go to the palace, the chief or the king has a suburb that he takes decision with. If they want to make any rules, any law, they discuss it in the palace. They look at the pros and cons, the negative, the positive, how beneficial the whole thing is going to be for the people before they will enact any rule or law. So democracy was being practiced way back before the Europeans came to Ghana. And in fact, we can say proudly, democracy is a shadow of our then democracy, our rulers, how they were ruling the country, how they were mobilizing the people. When you look at the military system in Ghana, we have the North Commander, the Northeast Commander, the North Wing, the South Wing Commander. We have all those things in place before the Europeans came into Africa. So it is democracy. It's something that we used to practice very well. We used to practice to rule ourselves, to govern ourselves before this European.
But Emma, if I may ask you at this point, So we accept democracy originated here in Africa, but of course, Pan-African thought processes require the local leaders, traditional leaders, to have a continent-wide consciousness of African unity. And this is, I believe, the critical role of the ACUP. How successful in Ghana has the ACUP to convince the traditional leaders a continent-wide consciousness is equally as important to having a localized consciousness of African centrality?
Yeah,
I know it's a
ACUP.
light question. It's a light question. Go on.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, very well. ACUP, as it stands now, has involved a lot of chiefs or our traditional rulers to help us to establish our system in their basis form. For instance, every community we go, our first entry is to see the king or is to see the chief in the community. Then we liaise with the chief. We tell them our mission, our vision, and what we want to do. So the chief themselves hands over where we're going to stay, where we're going to have our offices, and then they become part of us. In fact, in mobilization of the youth and stuff. For instance, ACEP wanted to do farming in one of the communities. So we went to the community, we told the chief, we explained to him the need of ACUP, and then we told him we wanted to have a farm to engage the community, and they were glad to give us the land. In fact, they virtually dashed us the land, and it was like, well, since you have come, they are happy, they are with us, and that we try to tell them how they can use African to be one. The need for African to use his heritage, his tradition to develop the place. If you are a chief in a community, one, your main goal is to make sure that your community understand the traditions of our forebears. And our forebears, one of their tradition was democracy. That it comes back again. Democracy. How to involve everybody in your decision making. By so doing, everybody begins to reason and to partake in whatever leadership role you want them to. So our chiefs, as it stands now, ACUP is not about you having the leadership position, but you having the leadership position, and then also conscientizing the people of the need of upholding your culture and your heritage, and then also using it to develop yourself in the African way. We can't continue to rely on the foreign way. We cannot continue to rely on the foreign cultures. No foreign cultures rely on our traditional cultures. So why should we also rely on their culture? And that is the need for us to make sure that our chiefs outline our cultures for development, our cultures for unity, our tradition for development, our tradition, so that in the next dispensation, when we are no more, our next generation can build on the traditions that we also are setting for them. We can no longer develop with the map of the foreigner. No, it doesn't work like that.
Thank you. I'm going to hold you there for the moment, and thank you for that response. Because that put us on the path toward African unity. If I can go to you now, King Kabbalah, just to touch on this subject. You're in the DRC, okay? Again, I've had recently researched the many peoples of DRC and the surrounding countries. Okay, it's a large, complex cultural melting pot. Okay, I'm not sure that all the cultures collaborate at all times, mind you, but tell us, just share with us, how do you convince the traditional leaders, the local leaders, to take on a much broader, continent-wide Pan-African thought process? How does that embed in their thinking? They're thinking very much of their immediate kingdom, their immediate localities. But Pan-Africanism requires them to think about the wider Pan-African concept of continental unity, which may not be familiar to them. And immediate tradition. How do you overcome that hurdle?
Now, thank you so much for the question. It's indeed a great question. Yes, we have to go through our leaders, traditional leaders, because of one fundamental reason, which is that these people are the custodians of our tradition, our culture, and heritage, as the Queen has mentioned. And the only way to make this agenda successful is if all the people or the majority of the people can embrace their culture, because the fight has to be won within the frameworks of our culture and value systems. You cannot take a people who are turned upside down, inside out, psychologically speaking, people who are physically Africans but internally Europeans, to embark them on a revolutionary agenda which is supposed to end European hegemony in Africa in order to promote the African value system if you don't educate them. And the best way to educate them is to link them with the traditional chiefs, the traditional, kings, so that they can be reconnected. But we don't just limit ourselves on that aspect, because we realize that it's a very difficult task. Most of these leaders have been bought by the system already. They are on the paycheck from the system. So sometimes it becomes very difficult for you to convince them. You go to convince them, they even fight you back,
Yes.
So we then center also our strategies on the masses. We believe that Pan-Africanism at this era mustn't be an intellectualized activity. What I'm saying is that it shouldn't be a remote activity from the populace. Shouldn't be something that it looks like it's very sophisticated from the common African people. Therefore, it's intellectualized and they cannot engage in that because it deals only with the chiefs, with the kings, with the highly positioned people. We believe that Pan-Africanism must be a movement of the masses. So we approach the chiefs, but at the same time as well, we also approach the people, because that's where the real power is,
Yes,
the people,
yes.
the majority. So that's how we're trying to mitigate with to mitigate with this situation. It's not easy to convince people's mind, especially those who have grown up within being fed by a system of values which is pro-European,
Indeed.
went to
Yes,
European education, and most importantly, they're being taken care right now by capitalist institutions or by Europeans. And you may get surprised in some of our communities. It is these chiefs, traditional chiefs, who are selling the heritage of our ancestors to these foreigners. They are the ones who
Very sad. Yeah, very sad.
collaborates,
Yes.
collaborates with the capitalist institutions to set the land, the farms, and to remove the people from their heritage, from their location.
Yes.
So we are trying in Ghana. We've been trying very hard. We have been in touch with a lot of kings. We have paying visit to some of the kings. I don't want to mention them. If Queen is capable, she can mention the names. But I know that we have been involved with the kings. We want to do the same thing. We have that balance, but we just don't want to rely solely. I think that's how we are going to to manage to convince or to bring Pan-Africanism in our communities. Through the kings, those are those who are open to Pan-Africanism, and most importantly, through our people, the masses, through education, mobilization, bringing back the consciousness, and most importantly, organizing them for real actions that can make Pan-Africanism a real agenda that people can, practice and eventually get the return in terms of changes that they expect in their communities and stuff like that.
Brilliantly said. And if I may return to you, Queen, it is interesting. It is an interesting point. As I do my research, the power of the traditional leaders is, in many cases, paramount. Yeah. What is it? What's in it for them? What's in it for the traditional leaders? What is Pan-Africanism? What's in it for the traditional leaders? What do they gain if they take on Pan-Africanist viewpoints? What's in it for them? Just give us maybe one or two examples. What's in it for them? Queen, can you hear us? Or maybe she can't hear us.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. The-
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think what they stand to gain in when we are able to be part of us or Pan Africanism is one, it gives them sense of realization. Why am I saying that? Every chief every chief is answered to the stool you sit on. And the stool you sit on is the spirit of the people.
yes.
So when you involve yourself in Pan-Africanism, it
Hmm.
is like you are awakening the spiritual essence of Africa. And that if a chief is part
Yes.
of this Pan-Africanism, then
Yes.
it means that you are also in for your self-fulfillment as your destiny holds you. So this is the first achievement or gains you will gain,
Yes.
because as an African, we all know an African without a spirit is just like a rotten log.
Hmm.
So our chiefs, what they stand to gain outmost, it is the awakening of spiritism in Africa, which is the core root of development.
Yes.
Two, what they gain to achieve is unism. You know, in Africa, we have different cultures,
Hmm.
different values, and different traditions,
Hmm.
but they are all of one same cause. That is unity. So
Yes.
when you are part of Pan Africanism, you are indirectly promoting unity within the sub-region. For instance, a chief in Ghana is automatically a brother to a chief in Nigeria and Igbo land. So when you are part of the Pan Africanism, you begin to have an exchange culture and exchange tradition, and that is where we look at it, and then we begin to have reforms by the chiefs. Some of the cultures that are outmoded, and it's no longer in essence in this dispensation. That is why we are able to bring together some of the cultures that were not helping the youth develop by themselves. That
Hmm.
is where the chiefs will have to sit down and say, okay, now the reasons are no more there. Let us read it off. For instance, early child marriage, for instance, some of the practices that are obnoxious to modern day human lives. This is like when you join the Pan Africanism, that is where the chiefs will have the power, the total power of liberating themselves, their people. Because I must be honest with you, when you go to some of the chiefs, they are chiefs, but they don't even know their essence of being a chief.
Whoa.
Some of them are Europeanized. They try to introduce European culture to our culture. We have hybrid culture. It's like we are doing half of African, half of Europeanized. So we are not having the full content of African tradition culture. So when they are able to join us, or when we try to conscientize on their Pan-Africanism,
Hmm.
I think they can come together, they form one umbrella where they sit together, redraw most of our traditions, our values, our culture. Look, what is it that is being practiced in Nigeria that is not good? That is
Hmm.
driving the youth away from our culture. What of Ghana? What of this? So they join, we draw similarities, we build on it, and then we have a new trend of culture, a new trend of values, which is in the African way and which can promote African development. So these are the
Thank
two
you.
main things that when they join and they become part of us, they will
Thank you.
benefit.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. Very helpful. I know these are slightly challenging questions, but they get at the core as to why the ACUP will be successful. Understanding the challenges, particularly in relation to our traditional leaders, okay, and their role in promoting Pan-Africanism and therefore wider continental African unity is a critical one. Okay, but I want to later on come on to the role of women. But before I get onto the role of women, and if I may, I'm going to go to King Kabbalah. If I may go to you now. I want to just put this question to you. You mentioned a number of personalities earlier on. You mentioned Sankara, you mentioned Marcus Garvey, you mentioned a number of names. Of those names, and I've read, as I said, 2 of your books so far, I haven't got through to the third one yet, okay. Of those names, which of those personalities are particularly poignant and present, particularly for my audience, as a reference point upon which to anchor their Pan-Africanist viewpoint and therefore basis to which we can grow as a wider community? Which of these personalities, just give me one. I know you may want to say more than one, but just for the purpose of conciseness here, just give us one that stands out. Go ahead. I know it's a challenge.
It's a very tricky question to give you one single name, and the reason why it's a trick is because I look at the blueprint of African liberation as a puzzle that has to be made with different pieces, and each piece has got a different angle, and when you bring all those puzzles together, you have a full picture. May give you an example before I give you maybe a single name as you have requested. When you compare the work of, for example, Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, you compare the work of Kwame Nkrumah, you compare the work of Sheikh Anta Diop, those three works form a triangle of Pan-Africanism. And each angle focus on one particular issue. For example, Marcus Garvey, we can consider him as he was fighting for economic liberation. His Pan-Africanist movement was based mostly on the economic liberation. Then you come to Sheikh Anta Diop. You will see him as he had a focus of scientific liberation.
That's right.
And we know what Sheikh Anta Diop accomplished, in Egypt. He actually destroyed the whole body of knowledge that was opposing, the African history accomplishment in the past, we look at Sheikh Anta Diop as a scientific liberation, which is the knowledge, the development of the knowledge of Africa. And then you come to Kwame Nkrumah, you see him as a political liberation. That's why even he said that seek ye first the political kingdom and everything else will be given unto you. So we see all these three people in equal contribution, forming a triangle. You have economic, you have scientific, and you have a political. When you have those three things, you are on the right path toward your development as African people. So that's where it becomes tricky to say, okay, this one single person is the most important. But I should say, though, all credit must be given to Marcus Garvey, because even Kwame Nkrumah acknowledged that among all the scholars that he had consulted, Marcus Garvey has influenced his thoughts and his vision of Pan-Africanism. And the fundamental reason why Marcus Garvey deserved this credit is because he's the only one single black man in the world where there was no TikTok, Facebook, internet to mobilize people, but who was able and successful to organize millions of people, right? In one single. Exactly. So I think Marcus Garvey has been a greatest inspiration of all of us, all the greatest, whether you talk about Kwame Ture, all have spoken about Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, all looked and got inspired by Marcus Garvey. Therefore, Marcus Garvey remains the greatest of all African people in terms of mobilization and organization for the African liberation and emancipation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And oh gosh, you're a good diplomat. There you go. There you are. Okay. But I'm going to put the same question to you, my queen. Okay, I'm going to put the same question to you. Okay, same question. Yeah. You answered as you wish, of course, but because you're both taking into account that the audience are learning from you. They will go away to study, they will review, and they will assimilate much of the information we have here in their own way. It'll be filtered through their own cultural and traditional filters, of course, but you're influencing them. You influence them. So to you, my queen, tell us, okay, of the personalities of the past, which has been the most impactful? and have been the most poignant for you, the one that the audience should focus on? Not disregarding what the King has highlighted, which is 100% correct, okay? But what if, from your viewpoint, do you agree with him, or would you add an additional name, or not? Go ahead, over to you.
Oh, okay. I would say my king has done a very excellent job, and he's on the right way. He's correct on that. But I also have a different view. I believe that Kwame Nkrumah, I'm not being biased, not because I'm coming from Ghana, but for factual and then for the essence of education, I would say Kwame Nkrumah because looking at all the people my king mentioned, I can say that all can be seen in Kwame Nkrumah because when Kwame Nkrumah was opting for African unity, and the unity comes with all the four legs of development, that is economic, political, religion, and then also other aspects. So Kwame Nkrumah tells us that we should be united to form a developmental tool to help our next generation. So when you look at Kwame Nkrumah activities, it cuts across Marcus Garvey's activities, it cuts across Patrice's activities, it cuts across all of them, all the Pan-Africanist people we know. So to me, any day, anytime, I'll go for Kwame Nkrumah because he enfolded all the Pan-African movement. He represents it. From my view, I think he has all enfold within him because without unity, you can't achieve political freedom.
That's right.
Without unity, you cannot achieve political, economic freedom, social freedom. You cannot, and it is reflecting on our lives now. African is not united, and that is why we are suffering so much.
Yes.
That is why we cannot even cross to our next neighboring country without passport. Though we have the ECOWAS, we have the AU, but can I even go to Morocco as an African to do whatever I want to do, any development? And the question is no. The Moroccans don't even appreciate the fact that they are brothers.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? So your focus will be on Kwame Nkrumah as being a anchor point for those who are seeking to develop a Pan-Africanist viewpoint as a principal reference point, as a lead to all the other key Pan-Africanists such as Marcus Garvey, Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, and others, of course. Okay. Can I just pause? Can I just ask another question? Because I just want to make sure we maintain the momentum in terms of my questions to you. Is the role of women in the Pan-Africanist movement central to its success, or are women's presence in the movement there simply to support men's leadership?
Okay, thank you. ACUP, ACUP, to me, is for women. Is by women and is of women. ACUP has realized something, a default in our political hemisphere. Women makes almost 80% of the voting practices when it comes to election. Being it rally, being it campaigning, everywhere, like majority of any political party, women play roles in it. But unfortunately, when they win power, they sideline the women when it comes to leadership role. And it is something that ACUP frowns upon. If you're a woman and you're part of ACUP, you are automatically a leader. You are not to come and support men. You are supporting ACUP and you are supporting yourself, and you have the rights, you have the responsibility as a woman to become a leader. In Ghana, our vision is that although the affirmative law is asking for 30% of women in leadership position, we are also thinking of having 50 or 60% of women in leadership role. Reason being is that women are the pivotal route for development.
Yes, absolutely.
A woman nurtures a man to grow. A woman can be without a man and be successful. A man needs a woman to be successful. Actually, a man takes advice from the mother, if the mother, the sister, if not the sister, the wife or the girlfriend. And therefore, women's role in decision making is very paramount. In Ghana, for instance, in our palaces, there is something we call Yekobisa Abrewa. We are going to ask, and he doesn't know what to do. He comes at a crisscross. The only option he has is to go and ask the queen mother. And the decision of the queen mother or the advice of the queen mother becomes the final judgment of the chief. Therefore, we cannot just use women in political rallies, women in political campaigns, and when it comes to leadership in development, we sideline them. It's a no in ACUP. It is a no. ACUP is empowering women to take position, especially young women
Yes.
who are conscious, who believes in themselves, who understand the leadership role they have inward, outward, consciously to take part in political decision so that we can have a better generation and future.
Thank
So
you for
that
that.
is it.
That's very clear. That's very clear. And as I said earlier on, that Africa is made up of many cultures, many traditions. And of course, this is one of those traditions that will need to be fully interrogated in order for Pan-Africanist thought processes to spread throughout the continent. And whilst you are fundamentally correct in terms of the role of women being a critical component, and women are as good as leaders as men, okay, it's how that sentiment sets with the many cultures and tradition right across a very complex continent. So it's so we in developing our inclusive narrative would need to be, I suspect, less strident, and more compromise, far more compromise. But I'm going to put that same question to the king, if I may. He's smiling. He smiled when I put that question to you. But I want to get his wider perspective on, and the same question to you. Now, I will say it again, just for additional emphasis, because really it's an important question. Because it's my experience of women is that they are a great boost to any political party. So my question is the role of women in the Pan-Africanist movement central to its success, or are women's presence there to support the men's leadership?
Well, no, I think the role of women is central to Pan Africanism success and to Pan Africanist success actually in the struggle. The
Yes.
Queen was right because I think when you even look, I think like Dr. John Henry Clark, I think I've heard him saying that in the history of Africa, every time that the leadership was in the hands of women, Africa knew relatively a peaceful period. I mean, every time the women were in charge, Africa was at peace, was peaceful, was prosperous. And every time men seized the power, Africa was at war. So I think women have demonstrated that they are capable of leading Africa. So it's not something that we're trying to see how it will turn out. It's definitely something that we have experience for. And based on that experience of the past, I think I would say that women have a central role to play within the Pan-Africanist struggle for the African liberation, same as men as well. And one of the important thing of about women in this struggle is that they are able to engage the struggle from a an emotional level, and based on that emotion, it's not easy for women to back up once they have committed to something, because they engage with the emotions, so they will stick on that. They will, no matter how it looks like. We have all these example narratives when even in our families, if a mother can support a child, even if everyone go again, I mean everyone is against the child, the mother can sacrifice everything to serve the child. So it's the same energy that women can bring into Pan-Africanism. And when they commit at that level, they don't give up, regardless of of the defeat or discouragement. Don't set back, and they just push until they are able to succeed. So I think based on this characteristic of women and on the historical narrative, I believe that women have a central role to play in the struggle for Pan-Africanism. What I may slightly divert from the Queen, though, is that women can be successful without the men. I believe that we are meant to be successful each other, unless if we have a different definition of success, then that's something else. But we are meant to be together to succeed properly. So that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, and I like her smile. This is an ongoing discussion. It's fine. It is well. It is an ongoing discussion. I'm only going to make this observation, again, my research, and I will have a Queen Mother from Ghana on a future podcast, so watch this space. But I make this observation, and I've looked at, I've learned to research in order to broaden my understanding of the peoples of the world. Okay? So I look at it as a child might look at these things, if I may say so. Okay, and as I look at the different peoples of the world, what I note, and maybe the Queen might want to come back to me on this one. What I note that the only successful civilizations that have survived the test of time have been those that have been ruled by men. Okay. I'm not aware of a civilization that has survived the test of time where women have been the principal leaders. Okay, so there may be something in that. If my observation is incorrect, I'm happy to be corrected. I've no problem whatsoever. But all the historical evidence I've observed suggests that in order for a civilization to stand the test of time, men need to be very much in the principal role. Absolutely, the women are critical, but it's the men that ultimately will determine if that civilization fails or is successful. It's simply an observation. If I've got it wrong, I'm happy for those of you who disagree and you have the evidence, place that information in the comment section for this video. But that is the observation I've made, notwithstanding that we cannot build a civilization without women. Full stop. Okay, that is clear. But I'm going to move on now, and I'll leave that one in the air. Maybe it's a future, Smiles. It's a future podcast, but absolutely, I'm simply analysing it from the point of view that what are the elements that have created and sustained successful civilization? Okay, and we must, and we will be, a successful civilization. Marcus Garvey said that we will create a civilization that will astonish the world. Praise be, praise be. My next question for you all, and this is another tricky one, and I'm sorry, these are tricky questions, but these are fundamentally sociological questions, okay? Question of your membership. Members of the ACUP, are they mainly Muslim, Christians, or adherents of traditional belief systems? And is there any conflict being a member of the ACUP and being a Muslim, Christian, or adherent to traditional belief system? King, can I ask you to go first, and I'll go to the Queen? King Kabbalah, go ahead.
Great. So I think I will answer this question quickly by using the words of Malcolm X. A member of the ACUP, when you come to the ACUP, I think what you have to do on that particular moment is just to put your religion and put it in your closet and come as a person who has been subject of Western hegemony, Western imperialism, exploitation, colonialism, because all these things, they don't look at religion. You are Christian, European Christian will come and exploit you and colonize you. You are a Muslim, I don't know, Arabic country that comes to Africa will colonize you and exploit you. So the message is simple. Please, it's okay for you to believe in your Christianity, your Islam, your your Buddha, whatever else that you can invent to believe in, that's okay. But you just have to put that in the closet. And when we come together, we come as a people that have been suffering for a long time. Suffering not because we are religious or non-religious, simply suffering because we don't have the power. And what unites us at this moment as the victims of colonialism and neocolonialism today, what unites us is the aim to build our power base that can then defend us. Because when we come with our hearts of religious of religion, we will be then, before even we connect, we'll be questioning ourselves. Okay, who is he? Is a Muslim like me? Is a Christian like me? And already that divide us, even though we are together, for unity, but already we are divided psychologically. We are divided because I'm thinking that you are Christian, you are Muslim. No, but we have to look at ourselves as victims, of a system that we have to overthrow. And that's exactly what we are. So the members of ACUP are all African people, whether they are on the continent or whether they are in the diaspora. We don't look at the religion. We don't look at at the difference in the culture. What we are aiming at is the fact that we are all African and we are all victims of the system, and we need to unite and build our power base that can defend, protect, and make us prosperous. So that's basically what is the demography of ACUP membership.
And to be clear, what you're really saying is that your religion is your religion, but the politics or Pan-Africanism respects your religion, but religion is not the guiding force behind Pan-Africanism. Is that what you're saying? Just very clear?
Yes, so of course, that's exactly what I'm saying. But what we say is that don't even bring your religion, on the table. Keep it for yourself. That is your private matter. When we come here, the agenda is simple: liberation and emancipation.
I've got it. That's why I might come back to you, but let me just go to the Queen now. Queen Emma, can I just ask you to respond to the same question? And now let me just repeat it so I'm not misunderstood. Are members of the ACUP mainly Muslim, Christians, or adherents of traditional African belief systems? Okay, what's your understanding in terms of membership, and is that a driving force behind the organisation? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Just like King Kabila said, ACUP, just like King Kabila said, ACUP does not recognize anyone's religion. It's a universal group. So, irrespective of whoever you are, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Buddhist, you are welcome to the table. The only thing that we are championing is Africa spiritism, and that is the only thing. We all have the vision, the goal. Aside you being a Christian, you may be a Christian, maybe a Buddhist, you may be a Muslim, a traditional religion, but if you have the edge, the love, that you believe that African can be African can be developed, or African can be in a good shape in times to come, you are welcome to ACUP, regardless of which religion you are, because we need everybody on board. That's the most important thing. We don't care about the religion you are. We don't care about whether you are, even if you are closer to Jesus, we don't even care. What we care is that we need to bring African back to glorious day.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. But I've heard, and again, my Muslim brothers and sisters, I'm happy for them to correct me, that often I hear them say that I'm a Muslim first, then I'm an African. Okay. Now, how does the ACUP cope with someone who says, I'm a Muslim first and then I'm an African? How do you cope? You want to respond to that question? If someone says, I'm a Christian first and then I'm an African, someone said, I'm a Muslim first and then I'm an African, how does your inclusive narrative work in those instances? King, let me put that one to you. It's a difficult one now.
Okay, no problem. So I think that, of course, there are a lot of people who have statements like that, who make statements like that
Yes.
one. And I think it's a matter of lack of knowledge. And when a person makes that statement, for me, I think it needs a Pan-African education. Because one of the principles of Pan-Africanism is that we are African first before we are something else. Because being African is a divine, to be more precise. Because you can be Christian today and change to become Muslim tomorrow, and change the next day to become something else. You have the power to change that condition or that belief, but you cannot change your Africanness. You are born African, and when you die, you remain African. So you are African first before you are Christian, you are Muslim, you are. But so if somebody makes such a statement, my aim will be to maybe enlighten him to understand that being African is divine and is the first thing that comes first before we are other things else. And if people then don't try to understand and to maybe to change their minds, then they are not Pan-Africanist. And they are not fit for the agenda. And unfortunately,
hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, as I said, we've got to maintain an inclusive narrative. Okay, where all Africans are savable. And I suppose I'm going to cut you off at that point, but it's they're all Pan-Africanists. But
I understand. Just one thing. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
If I may, all Africans are savable. But we will have to be ready to write some of our African off for the Africa to be liberated.
I hear you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I hear you. It is nuanced, the language uses. We just got to make sure it remain inclusive. It's a challenge. Be aware. I know it's a challenge, but my queen, I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds to respond to this question because we're almost out of time. I've just been alerted. So how would you respond to that question? How would you respond to that question?
I would say that for someone to say I'm a Muslim or a Christian first before an African, that is the person's view. But I believe that sometimes you don't need to convince somebody to be with you before the person will accept you. But sometimes you need to prove by you yourself to entice the person to be with you. So if you come to somebody, if you had an encounter like this, just give the person the benefit of the doubt. And then also you, the one that is going to bring the person along. Yes. Are you really an African? Are you really a Pan-African? What are some of the things you do to bring the person to you? But everybody has the right to belong, you understand? And you don't force someone to belong to what he doesn't want to belong. But what we are all seeking is that if you have 10% of Africans being Pan-Africanists, and you have 90% of people not willing to become Pan-Africanists, we, the 10%, must live to the words of Pan-Africanism. Our way of life, our way of doing things, the way we approach things, our tolerance, our belief system is going to project the 10% to attract the 90% to be on board. That is what I believe in. It is difficult to convince somebody who has a stand on I am a Christian, I am a Muslim. It's difficult. I must accept it. But my way of doing things can entice, can influence the person's, after all, I'm an African, no matter what I am. By how I, a Pan-Africanist, how I believe or relate to them. That is what a few things I can say.
Thank you very much. And There you are. You're a natural politician, and that's what we need. That nuanced, inclusive narrative. You see, but I understand what they say, what they mean by it. That they are Muslim first, or Christian first, because that's their identity. It's wrapped up in their identity. We've got to just find the appropriate thread so that identity can incorporate Pan-Africanism. Okay, at the moment, the defenses are up because the forces of evil do not want Pan-Africanism to take root amongst the people. Even at 10%, they do not want it, so they'll put up defenses. Okay, we've got to be prepared for the intelligent dialogue that enables someone, because rationally, the majority of Africans are indeed Pan-Africanists by intuitive understanding what it is to be an African. And therefore, only through unity can your true expression be realized. But that's a concept still alien to far too many who have been colonized of the mind. But we'll get there. Don't you worry, we'll get there. I've got maybe one more question, and we're almost at the close. And this is an important one. These countries have been mentioned in dispatches. I note that Ethiopia and Burkina Faso appear to have an African government. Am I right in that observation? That Ethiopia and Burkina Faso appear to have an African government? King Kabbalah, am I right in that observation?
So I can say that it is a process, or it is a development in progress. I guess it's only the end goal that can really tell us what was the aim from the beginning, because at this moment we cannot properly make a judgment of what is the real intention. You must understand that Pan-Africanism has been used sometimes for propaganda purposes, for self-interest, even though Pan-Africanism is supposed to be for collective interest as African people. But nonetheless, the leadership in Burkina Faso has demonstrated enough the willingness to divert from the neo-colonialist leadership that we have known in Africa, to embark on a different leadership that is not there just for propaganda, but to eventually bring the real change that we want on the continent. But for me, I think whatever that is being done with lots of reservation. I think Pan-Africanism, it's an agenda that has to be done with lots of aggressivity, not really, not so much reservation. So I don't see why, for example, you have a Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They have eventually decided to bring their army together. But why are they still using single passports? Why are they still using single national anthems? What are they still using? Different currencies. So I think if we decide to embark into Pan-Africanism, and we have opportunity as they have it right now, because they are in the position of leadership and of decision making, so they can just collapse the whole system, right? Because they've been there for 3 years. I think by the second year, we should have seen like fundamental change in the system. When it comes to economic system, military system, they can collapse the individual budgets to bring a single budget, especially when it comes to army, to defend those three countries. They would have changed the entire, outlook of those three countries. But I see a lot of reservations, and sometimes people are still getting comfortable of being individual leaders, to being celebrated. The same thing that Kwame Nkrumah, warned us in 1963 and 67, when he said that be careful, because if you get comfortable in leadership, it's going to be difficult for you to leave it, because once you get to be celebrated and to travel in private jets and all those kind of things, and suddenly you are confronted with the question of leaving all that privilege for the collective good, is going to be difficult. So I think I do salute Ibrahim Traore, the leadership in Burkina Faso, and I encourage him to do more, because all of us as young Africans, we are looking to him. He's an inspiration for all of us, and we want more countries to join and to form the true United States of Africa that we want. But to put a proper judgment to what is being done, I think I have to reserve my my judgment until we see the end results, or I mean a certain level of progress that can confirm that here we are on on the path toward the true Pan-Africanism or United States of Africa that we want.
Thank you very much for that answer, and I think I'm in broad agreement. But it's only 3 years, you know. most human beings have only just learned to walk at 3 years. But this is a nation, and this is a revolution taking place. It's not being it's not being televised, but it is absolutely a revolution that's underway. Queen Amma, how do you respond to my question? Are these two countries examples of Pan-Africanism in reality?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. And I think just like Woman King said, to me, they are doing on the path, but to some extent, Burkina Faso and Ethiopia. Let me use Ethiopia. Ethiopian is even the seat of Pan-Africanism. Let me put it in that way. That's why we have the AU and stuff. But to some extent, I think they are not achieving what they are supposed to achieve, not because they can't, but because of micro factors, of certain factors that is hindering their success. Because Dr. Kwame Nkrumah again, Ghana's independence is meaningless without African unity. Ethiopia and Burkina Faso, Pan-Africanism, they are part of them. Will not be.
How can my audience join or at least contact the ACUP? What is the best method to do so? Who wishes to respond? King Kabbalah.
Well, I think we have a website which is www.african.acup.org. It's is the easiest way to get in touch with us, because there's once you go on the website, you'll find the email address. If you write to us, we take no more than 24 hours to respond to the email, and we'll be happy to have your messages, your questions answered, and most importantly, your collaboration. If you have your organization, whether it's based in UK or where, it's time now for us to connect. You know, it doesn't mean something really important or something meaningful if we talk about Pan-Africanism, but we are unable to connect our organizations or our institutions. So it's time that we bring our different organizations together, because that's the only way we can consolidate the power, the voice, and our little efforts into a major voice, significant voice, and influential actions. I mean, whatever that we need to be listened, to be heard, and to make sense in whatever that we do, it's through unity of our organizations and of our institutions. So please reach out. Let's work together.
Brilliant. And I want to thank you both for responding to my, I know, somewhat challenging questions, but they are the questions that will define the success of Pan-Africanism across the African continent. Okay, and I want to again re-emphasize that our doors here on the Motivator Show are open to you at any time. Okay, always open to you at any time. Your success will be my children's success. Whatever I can do to enable you to function well as an organization, the Motivator Show is 100% behind you, and there are a few thousand Africans behind the Motivator Show, okay? And we want to make sure that you are successful. And I want to applaud you for your courage, your determination, because this is not easy. It will continue to be challenging, and as you get closer to your goal, it will become increasingly challenging. Okay? And I know even your very presence here is to be considered a privilege. So I want to honor you both by clapping you on behalf of my audience. Hear this roar. Hear the roar. Yes. 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 Africa is speaking. All Africans, global, are speaking. All Africans are speaking. They can hear you. They can hear you. We want you to be successful. Faith in, faith in, faith in. I had to send you off on a high. Thank you for that. Thank you. We look forward to your presence here in the not too distant future, and we will delve further in the progression of the ACUP across the continent. Your success is our success. We wish you well. Thank you, King. Thank you, Queen. Thank you for being an outstanding guest today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you very much.
Peace and
See
love. Peace and love. Wow. There you go, people. Woo, that was something else, wasn't it? Wasn't that something? Oh my dear, oh my dear. We're getting back in maybe 2 months' time where we continue this dialogue, with honest and open dialogue. And you can see that the challenges before them are not insurmountable. Regardless of your religious affiliation, you can and are a Pan-Africanist. Okay. Regardless of your ethnic origins, you can and can be a Pan-Africanist. Okay. You can be rich or poor, yeah? You can be tall or short, or stout or slim. You can and are a Pan-Africanist. And together we'll transform the world. Okay. The African Continental Unity Party, Africa's first political party transcending boundaries, promoting African unity. The primary aim of the ACUP is to promote the unity of African countries based on the belief that African nations should work together to achieve common political, social, and economic goals. Political and economic integration. The ACUP advocates for the political integration of African states, similar to the African Union AU objectives of creating a single political entity. Additionally, the party supports economic integration to foster a common market, free trade, and shared resources amongst African countries. Self-reliance and independence. The ACUP emphasizes self-reliance and independence for African countries, advocating for reduced dependency on foreign powers, particularly in the economic, political, and security sectors. This goal includes fostering strong African institutions that can manage the continent's affairs independently. The African Continental Unity Party, Africa's first political party transcending boundaries. African identity and cultural renaissance. The party seeks to promote and preserve African culture, heritage, and traditions. It supports the initiatives that foster a sense of pride in African identity and culture, helping to unite African peoples across national borders. Development of poverty alleviation. The ACUP aims to address economic underdevelopment and poverty across Africa. The party supports policies that focus on infrastructure development, job creation, education, healthcare, and other essential sectors that drive sustainable development across the continent. Peace, security, and stability. The party advocates for the promotion of peace, security, and political stability within African countries and across the continent. This includes conflict resolution, peace-building efforts, and collective security arrangements to prevent conflicts. The African Continental Unity Party, Africa's first political party transcending boundaries. Pan-African diplomacy. The ACUP encourages African countries to work together in their foreign policy to address common challenges and protect the continent's interest on the global stage. This includes strengthening relations with other regions while emphasizing African solidarity. Youth empowerment. The party aims to empower Africa's youth by providing them with opportunities in education, employment, and political participation. The ACUP sees the youth as the key to achieving Africa's long-term goal of unity and prosperity. Environmental sustainability. The ACUP advocates for environmental policies that ensures sustainable use of Africa's natural resources. It supports climate change mitigation and policies that protect the environment for future generations. The African Continental Unity Party, Africa's first political party transcending boundaries. Contact details. Website address www.africanacup.org. Email address unity@africanacup.org. Phone number +2774 657 7264. Contact us now. It's the Motivator here. I hope you enjoyed that last video. Have you given us a thumbs up? Have you made a comment? And don't forget to subscribe. The Motivator Show. Watch the next video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment.